Digital excellence beyond AI, grounded in reality. And joining us is a returning guest, Blake, the VP of Cloud Sales and Operations at Your Strategic, Ralph, Director of Government and Sales, and Jeff, VP of State and Local at Rackspace. This is Myer Media. I'm your host, Jon Myer. Blake, thank you so much for joining me.
Happy to be here.
Ralph, thank you so much for joining me.
Appreciate the moment.
Yes. Jeff, thank you so much.
Hey, looking forward to it.
Okay, let's kick things off. Blake, what's your role over at Your Strategic?
Yeah, Strategic Communications. I'm the VP of Cloud Sales and Operations.
All right. Ralph, how about your role at Rackspace?
Big role here, yes. RGS is what we refer to here at Rackspace, and I cover the public sector here in the United States for public cloud.
And how about yourself there, Jeff? What's your role over at Rackspace?
I work closely with Ralph Fowler here beside me, and we take care of the public sector across the U.S. here for state and local and higher education.
Blake, how did this relationship start?
Yeah, the relationship started with a mutual passion, I would say, and introduction with our colleagues at AWS. On the strategic side, we realized that we had a gap from a scalability and a depth perspective, technically, in some really important areas that we were finding ourselves not able to scale out. And it was a great complementary match that we've been working on developing over the last year.
Ralph, I guess my question is, what do you guys do for each other?
Complicated question, but I'm going to try to answer that for you. I think that what AWS saw in us before we came together, they saw that we had individual superpowers, but we were operating individually out there achieving success on our own. But together, we could do so much more as a team going in and providing a much larger, much better solution for our customers.
When you say providing better solutions for our customers, can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Of course. When we sit down with our customers, our goal is to try to make the process very easy and efficient, pain-free for them to do work with us and vice versa. And oftentimes, you might have 2 or 3 of those tools in your bag, but you might need 5 of them. And together, we brought all those 5 tools together, so it made it easier for our customers to then be able to work with us in a more efficient and effective way without making it painful to them.
Jeff, help me understand the partnership and relationship a little bit more between not only Rackspace and Your Strategic.
Well, to do that, to be honest with you, John, we have to zoom back out a little bit. You know, we talked a little bit about our success prior to us meeting, right? And so building trust with our partnership with AWS on both sides, Strategic and Rackspace. You know, they identified the fact that we have a certain approach with our customers. They saw our superpowers separately, and they saw an opportunity to combine those efforts together and figure out how we could go maximize our solutions, our superpowers, and our approach to understand, you know, public sector, you know, state, local, higher education, nonprofit, healthcare. Each one of those categories is completely different. And so what Strategic does, what Rackspace does, is we approach each individual customer uniquely, and we find out where they are in their journey, right? And then we realize how we can actually integrate to those teams and be part of the process for them, right? And so once we were introduced to Strategic by AWS, we quickly realized that Strategic has a very similar or the same culture. And for us, that's super important because customers around the world, they can see that. So you can see right through that. They want to work with people they know. They want to work with people they trust. And they want to work with teams that says it's not Strategic and Rackspace. Once we start doing the work and integrating to their teams, they want to know that we just have invested experts doing the right things for their mission to move them along their journey. And so once we started working together, then we started building out that go-to-market, really understanding what that sushi menu looks like, right? Of their services, their procurement vehicles, our services, our experts. We've got deep, deep expertise in public cloud and private cloud. There's a full spectrum. But we wanted to minimize and not boil the ocean on the product list, right? Many companies out there have shiny products and they want to sell these shiny products. We don't do that. Strategic and Rackspace, we work together to figure out what's best for the customer and identify the solution that sometimes a little more strategic, sometimes a little more Rackspace.
Yeah,
together we figure that out.
I think just to add to that, it's perfect. +1, better together is our message for our customers and solving their problems.
Jeff, it sounds like you guys got a strategic list of products and services you offer. And yes, I can't say excuse the pun because it's perfect. There's a listed offering. How important was it to you, Jeff, that AWS suggested your strategic for you guys to work together, the partnership and vice versa?
We have a long history with AWS. We've been solving customers' issues, problems, that, figuring out where they are together for a long time. We've been Migration Partner of the Year at AWS. They know us. We know them. We have a trust relationship that's deep and wide with them. And so for them to recognize our superpowers and for them to recognize strategic and the combination and the value of what that partnership could be is why AWS is so prevalent and so strong in the category in the industry, right? There's other CSPs out there that do a lot of great work. AWS invests in partnerships. They invest in trust relationships, and that reflects on what strategic is all about and what Rackspace is all about.
Blake, what problems are the two of you solving for customers?
Yeah, the problems are myriad, but the common, when we boil it down, are, for instance, our state CIOs. They are the linchpin balancing innovation with cybersecurity resilience, business continuity, and trying to find the right partners with the right experience and know-how to be able to do that.
Ralph, how critical is it to understand and trust that you're able to solve these problems with customers, not only on Rackspace's behalf, but with your strategic?
It's very important to us to be able to come in there and build a trusting relationship with our customers, and together we bring that value to the customer together. Like Jeff said earlier, we're not there selling products, we're selling solutions. And oftentimes when you have this discussion around what do you bring to your customer, I think we bring something very unique to the customer in and around advisory services, which actually starts before we start talking about the solution itself. And what's unique about the advisory services is that we take a vested interest into the customers, why they are doing what they're going to do. And by taking that approach, you start building trust and a teaming process with a customer, where you are working together with them to try to understand the journey that the CIO is about to go down, and bringing trust in that journey for everybody to participate in, for example.
Is that the typical approach when you approach a customer's? They're trying to solve something. I don't want to say a problem, but they have something that they need to resolve. Is that the approach you do at advisory services? Do you bring in your strategic at the same time? I mean, how do you approach the resolution to their problem?
Our approach is very unique. Not many companies out there that actually provide this type of advisory services. Not everybody is open to having this discussion. So it's a very, very fine approach that we take with CIOs, for example. The approach isn't to come in and sell a product, it's to come in and establish relationships and understanding what they're trying to achieve and working backwards from there. And I don't think there's a lot of companies out there that's taking that vested interest at the very beginning before you even start talking about solutions.
I think, Jeff, I got to ask you this question because Ralph touched on it in your previous comments. You touched on it a little bit. You're coming in and you want to solve a problem for them, but before you even suggest how to solve it, you want to understand what they're trying to accomplish and understand them, trust them, get to know them first, and then you could ultimately say, well, you don't need this. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do all the stuff that others have suggested. I mean, there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah. So even backing the train up a little further, right? There's three things I would offer to earn trust with the customer. Yes, we're getting to know them, but more importantly, they're getting to know us. And so we have this dialogue with, we don't sales pitch the first time we meet people. We have an initial meet and greet, right? There's a lot of public information out there especially for public sector, right? Annual roadmaps, annual reports, funding information, financial information, funding cycles. When do they get funded? When do they not? When is their fiscal? All these things are already out there. And so if you're not doing your homework before you go in to have a intimate, genuine conversation, you don't actually get to the three things I'm going to talk about, right? One is working with them to make sure they understand their why. Whether it's moving to the cloud, whether it's a migration, whether it's a strategic project, they've got to understand their why, because that CIO has to bring their organization with them. They have to make sure their leadership is concurring and approving. They have to make sure their procurement office understands what's going on and how they're going to fund this. And then they got to bring their IT staff with them that's going to actually execute and sustain this thing. So that's one thing, right? It's super critical. The second thing is helping them dispel all the myths out there in public cloud, right? Whether it's multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, lift and shift, whatever you want to call it. There's all these myths out there, right? Oh, if I do this, I'll save money. Oh, if I do that, I won't be locked into one vendor. So you have to walk through that. And for them to be able to feel comfortable about sharing that, they've got to trust you, right? And the last thing I'll mention is working with them. And this is usually where we start to get into the advisory services, is working with them to build a clear strategy and a clear governance model that's going to allow them to expedite, inject efficiency, and more importantly, deliver services that are critical to constituents and customers in their state, school system, whatever. So that's what my thoughts are.
I like first of all, we have been talking about trust. I think throughout this conversation, it's been a reoccurring theme for the partnership, trusting, not them trust or you trusting them, but them trusting you that you'll be able to do that. The suggestions and the solutions. Blake, when you approach like a customer's problem, are you bringing in Rackspace right away, or are they bringing in you? Like, how is this relationship built between you? Because everything that we've kind of talked about in previous conversation and this conversation, it's like you guys are one and the same, right? You're always on top, always communicating, and it's like one company kind of going in there to solve a solution.
Well, and that is kind of intentional. We want it to feel like one company for our customers. There may be customers that Rackspace is lead on with the relationship and the customers, and vice versa, where our sales team and customer success managers and whatnot have the relationship. We do want it to feel cohesive. At the end of the day, we want the customers to see that we bring a whole arsenal of solution services, whether it's solutions and services powered by Rackspace, or it's the rest of our ecosystem throughout our partner alliance community.
I like that. It's a mutual relationship, right? They are doing it, you're doing it. It doesn't matter. You're going towards a common goal, and it's ultimately solving a problem. It's not a profit. It's a problem being solved.
If I can, John. I love that, Blake. But I'll tell you, there's a couple things that come to mind, right? Yes, at the end of the day, the customer doesn't care if Strategic's doing most of the work or some of the work, or Rackspace, vice versa, right? But like any good relationship, think about a marriage, think about anything else, right? People say, oh, it's a 50-50. It's never 50-50, right? Some days I've got to bring 90 because you only got 10. And sometimes, same thing with solutioning, same thing with executing, but in the end, the customer just wants to know that the 100% is there and it's streamlined and there's no issue. I don't got to worry about what you're doing versus what he's doing. They just want to be able to move their business forward for business outcomes, for customer experience. And I said, I love what you're saying, but that's where my head's at on that.
Yeah. I think what I would say to that is many CIO teams struggle with piecemeal products in their solution requirements, and they themselves end up having to stitch together these products to get to the end result and goal of the business outcome that they're looking for, or the mission outcome in the case of the government. Our teams together and the rest of our community work on ensuring that CIO is not having to piecemeal everything together.
Blake, this would not be a conversation if we didn't enter into the AI space at all. We've all heard of shadow IT, right? And now I've heard the new phrase, shadow AI. We're all using it whether we realize or not. Somebody's sitting on their browser, they're typing it in, they're dropping company information and not realizing it. A lot of programs are using it without governments knowing about it because they integrated it. It's got to traverse back. I know there's been a mandate put in place, something like 6 months, kind of the education, get on top of AI. 6 months. Doesn't sound like a lot of time in government terms. Usually we're talking years. How are we handling this?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the agencies. Some of them have put in like a moratorium, like you said, on AI being involved anywhere because they need to get their arms around it first and put the governance and the security guardrails around it. Others have actually hired chief AI officers and data officers that's their job. And so we're actually seeing policy written out of California already, where we're having to actually state and divulge where AI is used in any of our solutions already.
Ralph, when you talk to customers, AI is probably, I don't know, every other word in a conversation, right? Hey, how are we using it? How can we implement it? What's the next thing that we can call our AI? How do you educate customers on the use of it and then how they can use it effectively and securely, though?
This is such a good question for me. When we sit down with the customers, oftentimes they come to us with this idea that they're going to go out and do something around AI. And oftentimes we feel that they're putting the cart way out in front of the horse. They're not really looking at the structure of the current their infrastructure model currently in place to see what are the governance models that we're utilizing right now, and are we following them? And do we have a framework that we can actually put a wrap around all this, that we know how to do this? We do it once, and then we do a rinse and repeat model, and we all follow this procedure protocol, and so we don't do we get in trouble in and around the AI model, which is very common these days. So what I've seen happening is that instead of going in and sitting down and talking about solutions around AI, I'm like, no, let's go back. Let's step back. Let's take a look at your frameworks. Let's take a look at your governance. Get your house in order. Then let's figure that out and figure out what we're going to do next in and around AI, and stack ranking the approach based on business outcomes you're trying to achieve, not just internally for your institution, but also for your constituents.
Is part of your conversation to understand why they want to utilize AI in the first place, not just because it's a buzzword?
Absolutely.
Or, also how they can securely utilize AI at the same time?
Absolutely. Security is at the very top of AI. And so we basically established that whole model through the frameworks, which equals governance for us. And we have the customer actually define that process when we're teaming with them to figure out what is it you're trying to do and why. And by having them explain the process, we articulate it into a format where everybody can see it and follow it. And so once you have that down, then you can work backwards from there to figure out how that solution is going to actually work within the confines of that framework, right? Instead of building the solution and then going back trying to fit it into the frameworks, way harder. It's like trying to get the toothpaste back into the tube, right? So we're kind of flipping the script on the customer and having them slow down a little bit. And it's actually working. They're actually listening. They're actually looking at us, nodding their heads, saying, yep, you cut us off at the pass, basically. So really good question.
How do you understand or get a hold of the applications that are utilizing AI when they don't know if they're using it in the first place, and help customers understand that? And I like that you tell them to slow down, right? But obviously everybody wants to go fast. We have to jump on the latest buzzwords. Hey, we're using AI, and within our integration, we can't walk 10 feet without seeing it anywhere. But how do you get them to understand and look at their applications, understand the security implications of it, and to make sure in government, public sector, everything needs a little bit more of a finer tooth?
You're absolutely right. And while government does move a little bit slower, it takes a little bit longer to do things that we're accustomed to doing much faster, it's also probably one of their strengths, because they're not leading edge. And they don't want to be leading edge because they don't want to cut their teeth on something that's not going to work out. They're dealing with public information, and you have to really secure that. And so getting out there in the AI world is really scary for them. So you have to really do your homework before you even start getting into those discussions and understanding what is it that I'm trying to do and how is that going to impact anything. Now, in government, they haven't really gone down the path of AI. Like, corporations are already using those solutions readily available to but they're locking that down because of the fear around releasing that data out into the public, which they can't do. And so I think that's actually one of their superpowers that they don't even realize in the given moment, right? Taking their time, looking at everything and making sure that they're following their protocols. But what we're finding out in this journey is that it's not really, they don't really have it written down. And it may vary from department to department or agency to agency. And we're helping with that process, defining that. So to answer your question in regards to how do you help that? Well, they're already stopping themselves from going out and using those tools to a large degree already. or letting those solutions interact with the key applications within their organizations. So
I would agree with you, but there's also some leaning forward appropriately, right, at their pace. They're not hitting the stop button and letting emerging technologies pass them by. I'll give you an example, the state of Texas, right? They're doing a great job. Their governor appointed an AI governance committee over a year ago, right? Selecting the state CIO and also experts from around the state of Texas to bring in, to input and to advise legislature on what an AI policy should be for the state, right? And so they are being a little more strategic. Yes, it's slowing down versus maybe somebody in a commercial that can just jump in, well-funded and go jump into the emerging technologies and all the shiny things AI can do for you. But when you have constituent data, when you have HIPAA requirements, all these things that you need to be aware of and you're responsible for, right? I love the way that particular state is actually zooming out a bit, having a strategic model of how they're going to input, understand, and then provide guidance and policy, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing that come out next year.
I think one of the things I want to touch on, Ralph, is that they're not jumping on it right away. And it's almost like you don't upgrade to the latest OS or software right away, or the latest bug fix, right? So you don't do that, and the government waits till the next pack comes out, however, because you have huge impact because you're dealing with public data, and I think slowing down is actually enabling them to go fast. In a way, and I like that they're already appointing head AI officers, you thought AI was going to take over roles and you were going to lose roles, but really what it's changing roles and people have to adapt to it. Guys, I got to wrap things up. We've kind of reached out of our time. And my last question, and Jeff, where can people go to find out more information on what you guys are doing?
Oh, wow. I mean, obviously you can go to our homepage, rackspace.com, and find a bunch of things here, but I would recommend also to go to Strategic Communications and their website.
Wow, you stole my thunder, man. I was going to ask him.
Well, you're asking me where to go, right?
I love that.
And quite honestly, it goes back to our partnership, right? Because Rackspace is listed on their sushi menu, and they've got a spectrum of vendors to provide out to their customers, right? Not just Rackspace. Right, so they've done a great job. Kathy and team, Blake, Chris, they've all done a great job of interviewing, selecting, and then folks like AWS recognizing that people like Rackspace should be a part of what they've got going on. So we're happy to be a part of that journey.
I think you guys got a great partnership, and we've been talking about this. It's more of a family, like the team. You guys work so well together. Blake, Jeff kind of stole a little bit of it, but I mean, if more information, obviously your Strategic's website for it, but you have a partner page. Any more information, not only on becoming a partner, but working with awesome people like you guys?
Yeah, the closing remarks I would honestly talk about are the fact that Rackspace is a great representation of how we treat all of our partners. We talked about community in some of our other sessions and how we really treat it like family, and that's our goal and intent. Rackspace is a great relationship and reflection of that, and it's a reflection of the greater partner ecosystem that we've built and to be a true trust advisor for our customers.
All right, Blake, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Ralph, thank you so much.
thank you.
Jeff, thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, everybody. This has been the Jon Myer Podcast, powered by Myer Media. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, and notify, because guess what? We're out of here.